practice. Now, I did a video on Jehovah's Witnesses, and this is a very strict religious community. And we're gonna get into how Reena felt about this practice. Now, for a bit of background, her father was an immigrant from India, and her mother actually grew up in Canada, Indo-Canadian, and, Reena rebelled very much so against her parents and their religious beliefs and how they, wanted to raise her with their strict rules, and she announced to them that she did not want to be a Jehovah's Witness any longer. I mean, she saw her friends and the things that they were able to do and to celebrate, Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't celebrate Christmas, don't celebrate birthdays, things like this, and she saw these other kids living a bit more freely, and she didn't like that it wasn't the same for her in her household. So, yeah, she really rebelled. She would not listen to the rules her parents set for her. She would skip meals. She began smoking cigarettes, changing her clothing style, and even running away from home. So, about 1 year before her untimely death, in a desperate attempt to gain more freedom, she falsely accused her father of SA. And because of this, she was briefly placed in a foster care home in 1996. Now, Reena's parents said that she was encouraged to make these false accusations by her friends because her friends painted this image or this picture in her mind that if you tell this lie, you're gonna be free and you're gonna live the teenage dream and do whatever you want, make your own decisions, not bothered by your parents any longer. And Reena's father said that her biggest problem in her life at that point was the people that she decided to surround herself with, her friends, or I would do air quotes of so-called friends. But I will talk about that later, how I feel about that. Now, it did get to a point where Reena felt tired of living in the foster care system and decided that she wanted to go back home and her parents love her. So, of course, they're not going to be like, no, you made the decision to do this, to make up a lie about us, so you're going to stay there. No, they took their daughter back in, but the mom found the entire process strange because the social workers that even put Reena into that system didn't do any thorough checks, no investigation to even see if what this young girl was saying was true, to even remove her from the home and then allow her to go back to the home. I mean, her mom was just thinking, kids make up lies all the time. How could you not tell that this was a complete fabrication? It didn't make any sense, but it did internally. not unlike many teenagers who experience feeling self-conscious about, their looks. She felt self-conscious about her weight and struggled with her self-esteem, which is totally normal as a teenager. You're trying to figure yourself out. Anyways, she desperately sought acceptance from her peers at school. All she wanted to do was fit in and feel seen and loved by the people at her school. Validated, Even when she was in the group home, she still sought out validation from the other kids. But unfortunately, what she received was, she was taunted, she was ostracized, and these girls that she was around, they grew up in a time where they were influenced by the street gangs in LA. And in late 1997, she was accused by some teenagers of spreading rumors, and she was accused of trying to steal the boyfriend of this girl. Now, this is all made up crap by these teenagers. Now, on Friday, November 14th, 1997, these two teenagers invited Reena to a party. Now, it didn't specify whether Reena considered them to be friends. I'm just gonna jump to the conclusion that they were not friends. This was an invitation from some people that she knew, and I think it even surprised her that she was actually invited to anything, because that's not something that she was used to. She wasn't the girl that was invited to things early. She was left out, and at first she was hesitant and thinking, should I go, should I not go? Her intuition, I believe, was leaning more towards not going, but remember, she was driven by wanting to feel accepted, so she ignored that intuition and decided to go along to this party anyway. So these two teenagers and Reena joined a much larger group of teenagers that, were from the same area, went to the same schools around, and this was on a field at Shoreline High School, and they watched a Russian satellite explode in the sky at 9:12 p.m. And soon after this light show, a girl named Layla walked onto the field and announced that she had been called upon to, quote-unquote, fight a girl. Now, Reena guessed that one of the teenagers named Josephine, which is the person that Reena was accused of spreading rumors about, she thought that Josephine had told this girl to fight her, because of these so-called rumors. And so Reena freaked out, sensing that she was in trouble. She started to run, and a number of girls caught up with Reena. The bus pass that Reena had, they took it from her and they tore it up. And I don't know how she had the time to do this, but somewhere in that period, she managed to get to a payphone to call back home, and her little brother answered the phone, and she told her brother that, she would be home soon. She wanted her family to know that she should be on her way back, because before she left home, she told her parents that she would be back at 10 p.m. So was accused of spreading rumors about. She yelled at her saying, "You're trying to ruin my life." And I think it was her that took a lit cigarette and put it out on Reena's forehead, which only just antagonized this group of girls around more, because now it's like that was the first attack against Reena. The aggression is high, and for them it was go time, which were cowards. Absolutely cowardly, a bunch of kids against one person. So Reena was surrounded by 7 girls and one boy, one teenage boy. They were all 16 years old or younger. And Reena started to cry and she was panicking. She's alone. There is not, yeah, and I come back to the word friends. There was not one friend that spoke up and said to leave her alone or tried to. Nope. She was alone, for real. And she said, I'm sorry, you know, and they were hitting her, repeatedly punching her, kicking her. And there was actually a crowd around watching this, which I wonder, as the years have passed, has that memory left them? I'm sorry guys, you know, I get kind of passionate when I talk about these because it's just so ridiculous. These people, this crowd, literally just left. They left, and not one person in that crowd thought, let me just call the police, or let me, and nobody has to know. If you're afraid of being found out that you're the one who told, whatever, go home and let somebody know something. Nothing. So 7 people punching, hitting, kicking this girl as she's on the ground. Now they kind of back off for a little bit. Reena manages to get up and stumble and try to get across the bridge by herself. And 3 teenagers, 2 girls and the boy, they decide that they're going to not let her go. And this is the point where I'm like, they made a choice. They could have just left her and gone home. Okay, they beat her up, but at least she's alive. But no, these 3 evil teenagers followed her, took her, dragged her under that bridge, hit her head against a tree, kicked her in her head, to the point where during the autopsy, and I'm so sorry guys, during the autopsy they said that they found a footprint on the back of her brain. Kept beating her up, put her in the water, where she suffered and drowned. Gosh. And they left her there. And the next day, one of these disgusting people, one of the girls, she came back, and I believe she was in a group home, she was in a foster home, and she went back to the scene of the crime while Reena was still there. The scene of the crime, got Reena's shoes and her jacket, and went back to the group home and told one of the kids, hide this. But everybody knew that Reena was missing. I mean, this is big news. People don't just go missing every day. And this smart, the only smart teenager it seems in the story, actually reported this. And that's how the investigation started, with getting Reena out of that water. It took them 8 days to find her. 8 days. And finally they did. You can just imagine the suffering her parents and her family went through. The sadness at her little brother, knowing that he was the last person to talk to her, of murder in June of 1999, and he was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 7 years. And his story is actually quite interesting because while he was locked up, you know, sometimes they have a change of heart or do some real reflection. Anyways, he found out that he was Matisse, so because there was also a lot of prejudice against her, and he found out that he was Matisse, which in French means mixed. This played a really large role in his case, and he asked the parole board to incorporate his elders into the process, and there were various healing circles and other forms of restorative justice that were used, and it actually brought together Lauren's parents and Reena's parents together. And on the day that he received his parole, he actually went around and hugged every member on the parole board, and even Reena's parents, and Reena's parents actually did accept this and forgive him. And even after he got out of jail or prison, he spoke out to raise awareness on bullying, which I have two ways of feeling about this. For someone from the outside reading this case and feeling that immediate heartbreak for Reena, that anger towards these teenagers, and the fact, okay, you find out that you're Matisse and that you're using this and bringing your elders in and doing all of this stuff. I'm wondering, if you didn't find that out, would you still be doing the same thing? Or was it a way just to get you out or look for sympathy? Whatever. I think that the most important thing is that if Reena's parents thought that it was genuine enough, then okay. I mean, they're her parents, for God's sake. It's just reading this, you get so emotionally charged and you're like, what? But, whatever. I think it's just a severity to what this was that bothers me so much. It's the severity that you beat this girl, beat her, drowned her. It's what gets to me. God bless her parents for having it within them to forgive. I always find that quite interesting when the victim's family can give the perpetrator a hug and feel genuine forgiveness. It just says something about the strength of the human spirit. Now, Kelly is the girl that was a part of this, right? The last three, and she was 15 years old when this happened, and in May of 2022 she turned 39, and she actually waived her right to be released into society because she actually didn't feel ready to go into normal society again. However, today she does live in a residential facility in the lower mainland region of British Columbia, and she actually would blame her inability to move forward with her life due to the high cost of living and parental struggles, because the guy that she had a baby with left her, and so she felt abandoned with her child. But in my mind, I'm just like, woman, stop. For what you did. How dare you? At least you have a life to complain about. Moving on. Nicole, 15 years old. She's the one that lived in the group home at the time, and she's the one who took that lit cigarette and started this entire thing that ended Reena's life. She took that lit cigarette and put it on Reena's forehead, and she was actually and she actually did say that she was one that repeatedly kicked and punched Reena, along with the other kids. And there was this interview where she was asked, do you think that it would have turned into murder if you didn't put that cigarette on her forehead? And really, she's the one who actually went back there and collected the shoes and the jacket and tried to hide it, and somebody else told on her. I think the only one in this situation that actually tried to make some good out of this nightmare was the boy. That speaks out against bullying the other two. What? Like, whatever bad life you're living, I don't feel sorry for you. Lost cause. Reena's mom actually did die quite a few years ago, and her father is still alive and living in Canada. The only thing I think about when I think about Reena and her experience is I just want to say I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that her experience of life, it just wasn't a good one. And I don't think that Reena had any friends at all who ever talked to her, convinced her to run away from home. And I get it, when you're a teenager, everybody's kind of lost in their own world and trying to fit in and whatever, go with the crowd. But Reena didn't have anyone that really had her back or understood her. I think that's the most important thing, is that she never just felt understood or supported. And I think her parents tried to just create a framework in which to raise their kids in the best way that they could, but it wasn't effective, I think, for really understanding their daughter's specific needs and concerns and whatever she was going through as a teenager. Yeah, it's devastating. There's no words to really say to describe this case. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next